Hello, everyone. It is once again that time of the week. What time
is it?
What time it is? It's call out the BS o'clock. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So as you know, if you don't know, again, it's that show where we dig underneath the headlines. We tell you that straight up truth. We give you that hard-breaking analysis at the international, national, statewide, and local level. It is the Hoodrat Strategist radio program. Now, as always, the following thoughts, views, and opinions are not necessarily those of 89.1 FM, WIDR Kalamazoo, or Western Michigan University, no matter how dope or on point they may, in fact, turn out to be. So, we've got a lot to talk about on the show. We got a lot of like national politics and local stories. Just kind of some cliff notes, let you know what we're gonna be talking about. Be safe out there. The STIs, man, they're rampant in this town.
What?
Yeah, we got a story about that. Then somebody at the local county police station was embezzling inmates' funds. Ooh, no, that's not good. Debbie Dingle gets confronted by some climate protesters. Also, the Wisconsin governor just criminalized pipeline protests, and that's right across Lake Michigan. Ooh. Kalamazoo School Board makes some progressive moves, tweaks their sex ed curriculum. Got some little quick updates about Bolivia. Trying to think what else. Maybe before we dig into everything else, there's an important story about Instagram deleting profiles of sex workers and porn actors we're going to talk about. But here's a local non-story that I just thought about these numbers. So I don't know if you heard about this, Lawrence. There's some new candy canes downtown.
Yeah.
Obviously, the most pressing issue.
I know. I mean, we have those issues. We have those issues, the local issues, which you always want to touch on. I always want to touch on national, international issues. So we gotta talk about.
I wanted to bring up the candy cane thing real quick
because one, it's funny.
It is so funny how outraged it's like. It's like half of the city, and then probably about half of Portage, asked to see Kalamazoo's manager. But there is a serious side to it too. I think, as a lot of people pointed out, it's like, well, there was a meme going around the other day. The shack awake and asleep meme.
Man.
Yeah, it's like homeless protesters getting evicted from the park and beaten up and all that stuff. I sleep. Candy canes get changed. Real stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And about, if I correct, I think it was about 6,500 to 7,000 people ended up signing a petition to restore the old candy canes, which, by the way, are from the 90s. They're not the original candy canes. Y'all are nostalgic for some Clinton-era candy canes, okay?
That says a lot about, that says a lot about us. As a society, that's a lot.
Oh yeah, and so, but I was just crunching some numbers, and it's about twice as many. Or no. That's about I think 2/3 as many of those people ended up voting in our most recent municipal election. So that's just the state of things, folks. It's a major election where you're picking a new mayor and 3 brand new commissioners. It's whatever. It's candy canes. What? Going down to the park today. All right.
I mean, that story. I do. My only take on it is that keep that same energy when the people in 2020 are going to be running our city. Please. That's all. That's the only thing I gotta say about that, Smoke. Is keep that same energy when it comes to some of the people who will be running our city. Mm-hmm. But there are things that I want to talk about nationally. I want to talk about President Obama weighing in on 2020. President Obama has not made many appearances after being president, but when he has, it's been to give speeches to Wall Street or tell people that moving too far, that too much change is a bad thing. And
we talked a little bit about this last week. His comments is like, oh, don't move too far to the left. And there's a recent update to this, and I think this ties into a couple other subjects we want to talk about. But I will let you continue.
Yeah, that conversation right there is definitely something that we're gonna have to talk about. Mayor Pete is having a problem with black folks, people.
Man.
I've never seen someone who's a potential front runner who have 0% of the black vote. Like,
actually, well, I saw a picture. So somebody photoshopped. It was Lizzo up at that. What was that most recent award show she was at? I can't remember.
I don't remember.
But she had like a tiny little purse that's like about as big as like a stack of quarters or something. And
right.
It was like, the meme was like, Pete Buttigieg's black support.
Oh.
It was like a tiny little micro purse.
That's horrible. So you have that. I mean, some new polling that's coming out that shows that Bernie is surging in New Hampshire, that he's taking the lead in New Hampshire, that he's has overtaken Warren in national polling across the board, in multiple polls that's come out recently. Like there's some national news, and there's some things that we definitely gonna have to talk about. It's just the fact that Mayor Pete was trending yesterday. That Mayor Pete's a Lion MF. Shout out to the Root. Because that's what we're gonna be reading from. Yeah. And you want to talk about it being spicy? Oh man,
that is a spicy take.
Oh man,
there was an interesting follow up too. We'll talk about the actual content of the article first.
Oh yeah. But I know you wanted to touch on some local stories, so let's hop on that first.
Oh, all right, yeah, let's do that. So, couple things I wanted to hit on. I don't know if we should start with the local corruption or the local. Yeah, you know what? We'll save. How about we'll do this? We'll save the indigenous stuff till later. Let's group these two stories together because they're both about reproductive health and sexuality. One is good, one is not as good. So let's. Should we start with the bad news or the good news first, Lawrence? What do you think?
Doc, we could. We can start with let's start with the bad, then we can do good.
Okay, now this is not an unfamiliar story. If you live in Kalamazoo, you probably we literally hear this about once every year or every 2 years. But it is STD rates or STI rates are climbing even more significantly than usually do, because a lot of people know we do have a lot of STIs in the community. We're in a college town. We have et cetera, et cetera. So it's always been kind of a big background problem. We have statistically higher STI rates than even a lot of comparably sized liberal cities in the area. So it's just, play it safe for everybody.
Doc, look, condoms, folks. Condoms, folks. And also go get checked. Go get checked. Know your status. Know your status. There was a whole campaign about it, Doc. Know your status. Know you and your partner. Know that y'all are playing safe. Because nothing is sexier than being secure that you ain't carrying around a clap. That is the most sexiest thing in the world.
Oh man! So I'm gonna read a little bit from the article and maybe talk about it a little bit more in depth. But as the Personal Health Division Chief Penny Bourne, and this is what she has to say: gonorrhea, chlamydia, and also the syphilis rates have increased. I think there's a lot of factors, but I think unsafe sex is one of those. Also, people are having multiple partners, and many of them are anonymous. Health Officer Director Jim Rutherford said social media is partially to blame. You do know with social media, people are having sex in a much more casual environment. Bourne said that there are 10 cases. There were 10 cases of disseminated gonorrhea, a rare and serious strain of gonorrhea, she reported. Disseminated gonorrhea is often a result of gonorrhea that hasn't been treated properly. It's been left untreated. The complications can be severe. Severe joint pain that require oftentimes a hospital stay. Bourne said the cases reported are mostly impacting. And now here's the thing. People in these articles focus a lot on the college-aged population. She says that it's mostly impacting males ages 30 to 44. So, wait, Lawrence, you like 29 or 30 yet? I can't remember.
Doc, I'm 31 now.
31. Okay, so yeah, we're both in the danger zone. So.
Oh God, Jesus Christ! Here's the thing, dog. I mean, it doesn't cost that much to go get tested. You can go to the health center and go get tested for free. Like, dog,
That's
you could
true.
go
right over on Alcott.
Right, like, and I understand, man, getting medicine, like, especially if you do have something, getting medicine or having to explain to your partner that you wasn't being safe. I get that. I understand. Trust me. I get that is embarrassing and it's a problem. What is worse is dying from a disease or being severely injured from a disease that you could prevent. Now, and I understand. A lot of Americans are broke. We can't afford medicine now. But what's gonna be worse is you trying to explain that you gave your partner something that you didn't have to. You know what I'm saying? Like, condoms and prevention, man. Like what was it? Back when I was playing sports, it was the five P's. Proper planning prevents poor performance. Like, it's one of those things, man. It was the same in sports. It's the same in the same in this. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you have to be able to. It's much more beneficial for you to be safe than to just be reckless.
Exactly. And I gotta tell you, like, the whole due diligence thing, like me and Lawrence said, always wrap it up. But if you make a decision that you don't want to do that, always, so yeah, I'll give y'all some personal advice. So I'm part of this demographic they're talking about. I have multiple partners,
I mean, so wait, are you a swinger or are you polyamorous?
I'm poly.
Oh, you're poly.
Yes,
okay,
yes,
okay. Because there is a distinction, like in a lot of I had to get educated on that because I one of my friends I had a long conversation with one of my friends about the difference between the two and things like that nature because I didn't understand. Yeah. Because I'm again growing up as a kid who had. Thanks to my parents have been married for the last 40-some years, but they've been monogamous for as far as I know. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But there's a lot more nuanced stuff, and if you're going to have multiple partners, dog, again, that's just you have to have better communication with all of your partners. You can't be hiding the ball like, yeah, dog, you can't be hiding the ball. You have to be open and honest with everybody because you don't want to be the reason why all your partners then got something, so
yeah, it's like I always go by like a test in, test out method. It's just like if you're about to be bumping uglies with somebody new, well, they're not ugly, but
bumping ugly.
Yeah, that's some old school.
No. As my old pastor back in September Second Baptist used to say, if you're gonna be sheet shaking, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you're gonna be sheet shaking, make sure your sheets are clean. Yeah. make sure your sheets are clean.
Oh yeah, but it's like test in, test out. So it's important just like get yourself tested and. Make sure that you're, don't got nothing that you can pass along, and make sure your new partner does the same, and then just again, if you're gonna be with somebody new, just do it, and same with like anybody you're in a relationship with.
Well, I mean, the health department says that if you are sexually active, you should get tested at least once every 3 months.
Yes, that's also true. That's a good good way to go.
At the very least, you're supposed to. At the very least, if you haven't been super active, and when I say active, mean having sex with multiple people, then you should at least be getting tested at least once to twice a year. Just for your own security. Like if you and also, I mean, it's really simple. If you've gotten tested and you haven't done anything physical with anybody, then you should be fine. Yeah. But you like, dog, go get tested, know your status, You know what I'm saying? But
And,
but because of this story, that's gonna make me go get tested. Because of the story, this story gonna make me go get tested now.
One last caveat. It's like the difference between being poly and being a swinger or whatever. If you just want to go out and have a lot of casual sex, wrap it up. Please. Yes. That's my best advice. Yes. You don't want to catch this like super gonorrhea that's going around.
Dog. That's the thing. Super gonorrhea. I have never in my lifetime, like, maybe because I'm just slow and or maybe just because
we need to calm near your parts with some kryptonite.
Right. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. I'm like, we have done so much stuff with antibiotics, or people just refuse to get treated, that diseases have gotten stronger because of it. Like, that's insane. That's crazy. Like, oh my God.
So I think this segue is really
shout out to the one person I'm messing with, cause I ain't gotta worry about that. Cause Jesus Christ, it's like, jeez. Yeah. Shout out to the one person who I'm messing with.
Just remember, like, growing up, Legend of Zelda. It's like, it's dangerous to go alone. Take this.
Yeah, right.
Pack of Trojans. Or something.
A pack of Trojans. Yes, a pack. Yes, a pack of Trojans. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Jesus. Not that or find some. I don't know if there's an ethical brand.
Whatever floats your boat. If you're a female and you like using female condoms, cool. If you're a male and you like getting condoms, cool. Yeah. But just be protected, folks. Mm-hmm. Please. Yeah. If you need dental dam, use that too. Mm-hmm. I've never used it, but I mean, just but use it if you need to. Jesus Christ. Crazy.
Right. So this ties into another story, which is a little bit more cheerful.
Oh my God!
It's too bad we didn't. We could have invited Jermaine on to talk about it. No, maybe.
Okay. No. So some behind the scenes stuff. There's some interviews that we have coming up that we are going to be doing over the phone. I'm trying to get some people from the school board to come and talk about some different things. I'm playing. There's a big one that we're not.
Don't jinx it.
There's a big one that we're not jinxing yet. But there's a big interview that we're gonna have with somebody who we are both huge fans of on the show. Hopefully, either if it's not this year, it'll be next year. There's a couple different conversations that's about to go down. You know what I'm saying? We stepping our game up next year. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. All right. So this article, I'm reading off of this is from the Gazette. Live. Kalamazoo School Board approves updated sex ed curriculum. The new curriculum, with changes ranging from lessons on consent in sexual relationships to acknowledging broader changes in social norms, was approved unanimously by the board during a meeting on Thursday, November 21st. Rights, Respect, Responsibility will be the new reproductive health education program for middle and high school students at KPS. The update will be the first change to the sex ed curriculum in more than 10 years. The curriculum, developed by a national organization called Advocates for Youth, covers real issues for students like sexting laws, dating violence, gender identity, personal safety, self-esteem, and sexual harassment. It empowers kids to make good, healthy decisions as they grow older. The organization's website breaks down the curriculum by topic and grade level. Topics explored in the curriculum on the website include abstinence, anatomy and reproduction, bullying, condoms and birth control, consent, gender identity, pregnancy, sexual abuse, LGBTQ, and sexually transmitted diseases. The curriculum is honest, inclusive sex ed for all students, the curriculum website says. Other lesson plans include topics like understanding boundaries, gender roles, and online safety. All right, there's more in the article there, but I think that gets the meat and potatoes of it. Good stuff.
All positive things. Definitely talking about consent, bullying, and all those things definitely need to be talked about, especially at a younger age, because studies have shown that abstinence-only education actually increases teen pregnancy, actually increases youth with STIs, because it increases youth abortions and abortions overall, because a lot of kids do not a lot of teenagers and others do not get the education that they need to protect themselves and understand what's how to engage in mutually satisfactory sex. You know what I'm saying? So like, nah, man, I agree with all that. And also, you know, the whole thing about the whole gender thing as well, man. Like it's we live in a different time. We're living in a different age, and I still mess up people's genders and stuff all the time now. And I don't try to, but you know what I'm saying? Even I'm still learning, and I want to, and making sure that people feel comfortable within their own skin, and that they are comfortable expressing themselves and being accepted by their partners and other people in society in a better form and in a broader form. And when we talk about expanding the circle, we talk about expanding the circle of liberty and expanding the circle of equality, that's what this is doing. So it's positive. I absolutely agree with all that.
Yeah, and you know, I think there's a couple of things that I really like about this, and two, like one, you know, talking about, because this, you know, especially the youngest generation, you know, really, you know, I think like we're a little bit like older millennials. You know, I like to say it's like our conception on gender was kind of born by Kel Mitchell. It's like, I'm a dude, you're a dude, we're all dudes. Anyway, sorry.
You went back to Good Burger.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But but in particular, like a lot of younger millennials and Gen Z are just more in tune with like changing gender norms, and I'm glad that it's being intentionally put in the curriculum. Also, the stuff about consent and boundaries, like, you know, I think about this issue a lot. You know, some of the work I do is like kind of talking to other men about like, this is bad behavior, you shouldn't do this, etc. But yeah, you know, it especially for younger men, getting some actual like curriculum in there about boundaries and consent is so important, you know. And this is just anecdotal, but I remember like when I was a teenager going to high school, you know, well, it's like you know, it's like what do the teachers, you know, what the movies teach you growing up? Well, it's like, well, it's, you know, if a girl says no, just keep asking, and then maybe like bring a boombox outside of her house. And, like, play some music. It's like, no, in real life that gets you a PPO, but no, just like understanding. It's like, you know, it's like, yes, it's like you don't know, you don't keep pushing. It's like, you know, understand people's boundaries. And especially consent.
I mean,
like if we get the young generation to understand that stuff, you know, innately, that'll make a better community.
I agree with that. I mean, it goes both ways. If it doesn't matter if it's a woman that's saying no, it doesn't matter if it's a guy that's saying no. Like understanding that. Also understanding when it comes to gender, and this is more of a cultural thing that America will have to get over, is that just because someone doesn't like they don't identify with the way that you identify, doesn't mean that they're pushing an agenda, or they're trying to downplay someone else's ideology or religion or things of that nature. Like you're gonna get a lot of those talking points being used to counteract this. What those people need to also understand is that those people are not interested in being with you, so you don't have to deal with it. And that representation and equality goes across the board. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like those things are not mutually exclusive. Like you can have someone explain or say or want to identify in a way that better explains who they are as a human being, at the same time understanding that that we all are still, that does not infringe or take away your rights to be who you are. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
like yeah. I'm using the colloquial terms. I'm a cisgendered heterosexual man, right? You know what I'm saying? Like straight man. That's how I identify. That's how I'm gonna be. That's how I identify. But you know, we kick it with Nora. Nora was a contributor on the show. Nora being themselves is Nora being themselves. That does not affect my train of thought, my religion, or who I am in any way, shape, or form. You know, but at the same time, Nora's still the homie. Like if anybody try to hurt Nora, y'all gonna have problems with me. You know what I'm saying? But that's still the homie.
You know, I think I feel I want to respond a little bit to that. It's like I feel like you're digging down to like a really important point, especially when it comes to like this gender stuff. Is the reactionary right and a lot of people were just hesitant,
and some people on the left,
yeah, are very they feel like it's like you said like the LGBTQ agenda or whatnot, and you're gonna start seeing this again. I guarantee there's probably gonna be these articles circulating about how we want a gender neutral Santa Claus or something. So it's around that time the right wing always tries to look at these ridiculous things that the gays want. And it's like, do you know what the LGBTQ agenda is? It's I want to be able to be myself and go to the frickin' bathroom without getting yelled at or worse.
And not being fired for loving who I want to love.
Exactly.
That is like the again we're talking about equality. We're talking about humanity, and human rights, just like feminism or being a social justice warrior or someone who's fighting for social justice or someone who's fighting for equality. It's fighting for the humanity and equality of all people, regardless of who they are, race, religion, color, gender, whatever. Blah blah blah. The thing is that we tend to get hung up, and it feels. What the reason why I want to reference this is that there's a lot of times when some communities will not fight for other communities because they feel like they're being overshadowed, and forgetting the fact that the system of oppression oppresses all of us. System of oppression oppresses all of us, and that's the thing that I feel like definitely needs to be understood. That if we're like, for example, I would consider myself a black democratic socialist. Mm-hmm. So I believe in reparations, and reparations is a political issue. So when I talk about reparations in some context, Andy, as much as I love you and Luke and others, y'all are not going to be a part of that conversation, mostly because understandably, because y'all white. That's what it is. Some of that conversation y'all will not be a part of because I'm talking to other black folks. But when I talk about it on a national scale and trying to actually implement it, then we're going to need white allies to be a part of it, because you cannot push any type of legislation through this country without having support by other people who do not look like you. Mm-hmm. Especially some for example, for the issue of reparations. Same thing when it comes to gender equality. It doesn't matter if you're gay or if you're straight. It doesn't matter if you are cisgendered or trans or whatever. Something that doesn't care about any of those things: cancer, or going medically bankrupt.
Yep.
So what's one thing that helps all of us in that situation? Medicare for all. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter if you are straight or gay or whatever, if you're black, whatever. If you have over $100,000 in student loan debt, mm-hmm. You want to know something that will help us out with that? Universal free college and tuition, and canceling all student loan debt. Mm-hmm. See, these are the things that when it comes to us fighting for each other and the solutions that we will need. Now, there are things that are specific to an individual group, like reparations, or like a woman's right to choose, or like the Equality Act, which is a LGBT act, and also a Women's Act as well. So those are or talking about fighting for Native American rights, because that's another thing that I wanted to talk about too. Keystone XL pipeline leaked again. And that's another conversation that we have to chew when it comes to that we will be talking about later today. But the point that I'm getting to, because I'm ranting now, is that these type of measures are things that help us reach that goal that we talk about equality. So we talk about this being put into schools. We can have a Black History class that's year round, that's mandatory. We can have a class that's talking about indigenous history and how the government has treated indigenous rights. Like that's a course that definitely needs to be talked about, because we don't talk about that.
Yeah,
like we don't so
much.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like the whole. And I think anything that wasn't part of like the main kind of white patriarchal capitalist culture usually gets excised from history, and you're starting to see a lot of pushback against that now. Like, cities are changing from like Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day. You're getting a little bit more honesty. It depends on where you are, though. The curriculum changes. Like, if you're in a in a city like Kalamazoo or a state like Michigan, you're gonna get some even-handedness. But even like Thanksgiving. Like we're talking like tomorrow's Thanksgiving, right? Thanksgiving is. If your state legislature is run by Republicans, then Columbus was a dope ass guy. Slavery was bad, but the Republicans ended it, and there's been nothing bad or racist ever since then.
Oh my God! There was a story about that too with Charlie Kirk. Like, actually, there's a story about that with Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens and the DNC vice president going on Fox News and giving them the hands. That's a whole nother story that we were supposed to talk about too, which we will be getting to. But it goes back to add to that point that you're getting to. We talk about this, and then we can talk about having a Black History and it's not an elective class. It is a historical class. We could talk about having an economics class that is mandatory, because a lot of us didn't get that type of education about economics growing up. Talking about credit and things of that nature. We need to expand the circle of liberty so that people are not so that marginalized voices are not getting their stories told by people who don't care about them.
Yep.
And that's the number one thing that I feel like that's one of the reasons why we have this show. That's right. It's one of the reasons why we talk the ish that we do, because we have to speak it into existence, and that whole thing that the education board did, I give them hand claps for. Yeah, good. Now we just need to we have more work to do.
That's right. That's
a good start.
All right, so let's go ahead. We're going to take a quick little break, and then when we come back, well, we got a lot more to talk about. Right. This is the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo, your only source for political revolution.
You know what they call a quarter pounder with cheese and herring?
WIDR Kalamazoo.
This is a tasty burger.
Hey there, Rider listeners. Know what's even cooler than supporting Radio Evolution? Driving safe in the winter.
So listen to Zia's tips.
If you want to drive safe. Keep a safe distance from other drivers. If you find yourself sliding out of control, turn into the skid to regain control of the vehicle. And if visibility is low, go slow. Don't be afraid to go under the speed limit if you have to. Last but not least, stay warm and keep extra blankets in your trunk or back seat in case of emergency. This has been a friendly reminder from Wider.
Yes. Thank you very much, everyone. We are the members of Quantum Fleek. It's a secret. It's now out. There are no others jamming today. Alright, folks. It's time for more. One day as a child, I was pulled into a portal. Those robots, they came and took our jobs. Those robots, they are robots. They came to our portal. Those robots, they came to our portal. One day when the future, there will be robots. Oh, they will come through. A portal into your mind. The robots, they'll run into those robots.
We are back. This is the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo. We've got a couple stories now. We're going to zoom back out to the national level. And, I guess I'll entitle these three stories Centrist Billionaire Nonsense. Well, Pete's not a billionaire. He'd probably like to be one at some point. But,
Man.
But yeah, we got here's our take. We were kind of talking about this before the show started. You can really see the capitalist wing, big corporate wing, I guess I should say, of the Democratic Party, because the Democratic Party doesn't really have an anti-capitalist wing. We've got like a few people, like 5, I don't know.
Nah, okay, look.
I'm pushing my words.
The overwhelming. Look. I understand that you're much more. You're farther post. You're more post-capitalism than I am. Mm-hmm. And we're not going to get over the fact that the overwhelming majority of Americans are capitalists, like the overwhelming majority of Americans. Now, when you talk about millennials and Gen Zers,
technically you're not a capitalist unless you own capital. Otherwise, you just support capital.
Yes. Let's be clear. Let's be clear.
I try not to be like, well, actually.
No. Let's be clear. So, the overwhelming majority of Americans support capitalism, even though a good majority of Americans do not have capital. And this is true. Those two things coexist at the same time. Yeah. Now, if you're talking about millennials or people who are younger, like millennials, Gen Zers, and others, yeah, they're farther progressive, and studies have shown that they will vote for a socialist before they vote for a capitalist. That is also true. That is the generational divide between our groups, which is a whole nother conversation that has nothing to do with this conversation that I'm about to talk about why Mayor Pete was trending. Yes. He was trending over the weekend, bruh. Right. Okay. So we talked about Mayor Pete a little while ago, and mostly we just talking about Mayor Pete because he decided there was been multiple things to come out. First, he had his fake endorsement of black folks that with the Douglas Plan, which we talked about. Then he had his story. There was a video of him talking at a Tea Party rally back in 2010. This is while he was mayor, talking to the Tea Party, saying that we have common goals. And this was in 2010, not 2008, 2010. This is after the Tea Party has come out with signs that had Obama being hung and things of that nature. He accused black folks of being homophobic, and this is the reason why they didn't like him. And we talked about that on the show. And then this video came out of 2011 of Mayor Pete. Like, do you want? Can you play the video? Please, actually play the video because if you have not heard this video, this is Mayor Pete back in 2011. Let me actually find. I'm gonna find. Let me. It is in the article that I sent. Mayor Pete is having a conversation, and he is talking about why black children or poor children do not succeed. Now he's saying poor children, but he's referencing black people in his town and saying that they are less likely to succeed. And The Root, shout out to The Root, shout out to the man who wrote the piece. Let me find his name. Hold on, let me find the author's name at The Root that wrote this article.
Michael Harriot.
Yeah, Michael Harriot. So he wrote an article that said Mayor Pete is a lying MF. And the hashtag Mayor Pete is a lying MF was trending on Twitter. And he wrote this. If you have not read the article, we will post the article in the description after this talk show. But please play this video. Let's play this video, and then we're going to discuss the article. So this is the video in question from 2011, and he's talking about education in the black community.
You know, the kids need to see evidence that education is going to work for them, right? So you see a lot of parts of town.
That's part of the motivation.
Yeah, because you're motivated because you believe that at the end of your educational process, there's a reward, there's a stable life, there's a job. And there are a lot of kids, especially the lower income minority neighborhoods, who literally just haven't seen it work. There isn't somebody they know personally
and I think that's
who testifies to the value of education. So yeah, you bet.
Okay. So the talking point that you hear is that there's no one motivating them to there's no motivation, there's no good role models. There's no motivation, there's no good role models, and that the culture is wrong. That's what he's equating to the lack of black children or poor people not being successful when it comes to education. Okay, outside of the fact that is a right-wing talking point that literally David Duke and other far right-wing extremists have actually used to talk about why black people are inferior, we're gonna ignore all that. But if I'm gonna argue on that premise first before I get to the article. Mayor Pete, you were mayor. Did you put more money into those schools to help mentor those kids? Did you put the right kind of mentors, white mentors or whatever, into those schools, into those failing schools to help promote and influence the kids so they have a better education?
Or here's an idea. Set up programs that meet their basic needs so that they can be more personally invested in education. You know, Black Panthers figured that out several decades ago with their lunch programs. Or
did you create after school programs or opportunities so that they can get training, so they can get hired by the people who are looking for educated workers? Did you do that? No, you did. So on your own argument, you were in position. You had a position of power where you could do that, and you didn't. But you thumbed your nose at those that are less fortunate. And this is a pattern of behavior that Mayor Pete has done before. When he was at Harvard, he came out with a book where he looked at the janitors at Harvard, and in his own personal book, the janitors at Harvard, when he was there, were protesting that they weren't getting a fair living wage. Dr. Cornel West went to Harvard and was standing on the side of the janitors that were saying, yo, we're at a prestigious school, we work for y'all, and y'all are not paying us a living wage. Mayor Pete called them social justice warriors.
Yep, I do. I remember that scandal from earlier in the cycle.
He called people he called people that work at one of the most prominent colleges and universities in our country, people who are fighting for a living wage, social justice warriors. Now, also, this goes back to the mind state of Mayor Pete. Mayor Pete went to one of the best private schools in Indiana, and he also one of the best private schools in Indiana, and that private school was on a campus of Notre Dame, one of the best universities in the country. So that old saying that you were born on third base and you thought you hit a triple, like Mayor Pete's literally doing that, but he's thumbing his nose at everybody else who can't get on base.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So this goes back to that article. Where my brother throws mad shade at Mayor Pete. I'm not going to get to the parts where he throws mad shade, because that's not as interesting as the actual facts of the case. So there's a study which I want to get to, which I'm going to read from when I get to it. The Ed Build study, when it comes to the differences between well-funded education institutions in America and those that are less fortunate. The Ed study, which is also in the article, shows that between majority minority schools receive $23 billion less in funding than white schools, according to a recent Ed study. Black students in Indiana, in the state where Mayor Pete served as mayor, and across the country are dispelled much more harshly. They are disciplined. Black students are disciplined much more harshly than their white students. Black college students. Wait, hold on. I lost my place. But even though Mayor Pete has never attended a school with more than 10% black students, he thinks that he knows what's stopping black kids from achieving their education. Also, this is the other part. When it comes to unemployment, in that study they looked at college students, black college students and white college students that has the same degree. Remember, these stats, they have the same degree. Unemployment for black college graduates is twice as high as the unemployment rate for white college graduates. Black college graduates are as likely to be paid just as much as a white high school dropout. Black college graduates, black college graduates are paid 80 cents on the dollar compared to the white college graduates, and they have the same degree. White college graduates leave college with less debt and higher earnings. White kids get more resources, more advanced classes, and have access to more technology. These are the basis of why white students are do better than their black counterparts. This is that two-tier justice system that we talk about all the time on this show. The two Americas. Mayor Pete literally is ignoring those facts. Yet he wants to advocate to black people that his plans to help them are better without addressing these facts.
And, you know, to me, too, it goes back to this kind of conservative chicken versus egg type of thing. Whoever's calling in, give us just a sec. Actually, probably call back around 7 p.m. and we'll get...
Yeah. Well, we can't answer. We don't because of the studio phone. We can't answer. We can't have you talk on air. If you was to call our cell phones, that would be different. But it's not hooked up right now that we can answer from the actual studio phone.
So I was gonna say is so we were talking about like after school programs. I thought that was a really good example because the kind of things that he was talking about, and this is again a talking point you hear from pretty much every Republican, most of the Democrats, especially the older ones, is this idea, it's a cultural problem. It's like a social problem. You got to handle it, parents need to talk to their kids, da-da-da. And, if you actually look at the data, it's this idea that, they're not going to take advantage of the after-school programs because culturally education's not important to them or some nonsense. What you see time and time again is when you do provide after-school programs, more people in the community are engaged with education. More people, crime is reduced because there's something for young people to do after school, et cetera, et cetera. That is the egg. That's the egg that the chicken comes from. It's like you want good education outcomes for low-income people, for black folks, et cetera. You need to provide the actual supports in the community for that to happen. And I think on a local level, that's been our biggest critique. Not so much now, but especially when the promise first started.
We talked about, we literally were talking about this the other day with the issue that was going on downtown with the busing situation. We literally were just talking about this. When you we have an influx of more students taking the metro between 2 and 4 p.m. A lot of those students are not either they're going to or they are leaving from a program that they're into that they have to have good grades to be a part of. You can't participate in sports if you don't have a passing GPA. There's a lot of after school programs where they will not let you be a part of them if you do not have a passing GPA. So those are incentives to make sure that you are on your P's and Q's if you're a student. So if you're not putting those things in place where, again, what he said, there's no mentors. A lot of those programs are mentorship type programs where you're instilling into the youth ways to be a productive citizen. So even with his own argument, he had an opportunity to put those things in place and he chose not to. So you are literally so to use the example that my brother used in the article, Mayor Pete is an EMT with an oxygen tank and mask, looking at someone who is suffocating, saying they don't need the help, they're just holding their breath. That is negligent homicide is still homicide. Regardless if you are actively participating or not. The other thing that he said in the article that spoke to me is that we look at this issue like it's black lethargy and not white empathy. In the sense of we're not going to fund your school. We're not going to fund your education program. We're not going to fund your school. We're not going to give you the same type of opportunity, not outcome.
Benton Harbor.
No. We're right. Not outcome, but opportunity. We're not going to give you the same opportunity. And we're going to look at you and say, yo, why don't you dig yourself out of the hole that we put you into? That is literally why Mayor Pete is a lying MF. Outside the fact that he lied about being for Medicare for All in February, and now he's not for Medicare for All, he's for the public option, even though he still uses the language of Medicare for All. Him lying about not knowing that white racist police officers and his donors back in South Bend told him to fire the first black police chief, and then he fired the white whistleblower that found out about the white racist police officers who are still on the force today, discriminating against black folks, weeding out black police officers in his state, and then shooting and killing unarmed black folks. Like him lying about him saying that he wasn't that if he was president, he wasn't going to send our troops to Mexico to fight the drug cartel. He literally said it. It's on YouTube. And Tulsi called him out on it. Yes. So is Mayor Pete a lying MF? Yes, he is. Mayor Pete needs to go take a seat. He needs to come to the front of the church and he needs to take several seats. He needs to take the entire front pew of the church. Okay? He needs to wait for the doors of the church to be open and still sit there because he ain't doing right. Okay? Like that's like Mayor Pete needs chill. He needs to chill. Now, we didn't talk about that, and we still got to talk about Bloomberg jumping into the race. We still got to talk about President Obama. We still got to talk about Benjamin Netanyahu, Native American women being killed, Native American women and transgender women being killed all over the country. Like we have a lot of stories to get to, and it's 7:00 and we need to take a break anyway. All right. So
y'all listening to Hoodrat Strategist Radio.
And that caller who called, you can call. Please call us now because we're about to take a break.
Mm-hmm. Y'all listening to the Hoodrat Strategist Radio program only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo, your only source for political revolution.
I have Osterberg's theory, according to Osterberg's theory of college radio. If you have 10,000 kids, man, and going to a college, and there's one free station, it's not going to be divided between the use of all the kids. There's going to be one snot, the most obnoxious, grasping person in the school who's going to figure out a way to get a hold of those toys, you know. And so you generally meet, they're pretty twerpy, but on the other hand, I like the kids who listen to them.
WIDR, Kalamazoo, your exception to Osterberg's theory.
You find they don't understand you? Yeah. You think you're normal?
I've been misunderstood. But long enough now.
But we understand you, Iggy. We understand you. WIDR.
find a microphone as nice as the one that is near my mouth. Everyone knows that I love a good microphone, touching the lips like a lover's kiss. We've come too far
Let's rip Bloomberg a new one.
Yeah, let's do that. We are back. Hoodrat Strategist radio program only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo. Thanks to the caller. By the way, just kind of a thing. So we definitely do love getting some call-ins and all that stuff, and even bringing people into the discussion. We do have ways to do that, by the way.
You will have to call. You will have to call one of our cell phones personally, and I'm not giving out my cell phone number to y'all.
But I would actually say though, just for future reference, if there's something, a particular like sticking point you have with something that we talk about on the show, or something you want to kind of have a discussion about, elaborate, probably the best way to do that is send a message to our Facebook page. Not that we don't want to hear from you during the show. It's great to get feedback, but for longer, more nuanced discussions, probably want to leave it at Messenger, just because we only got so much time on the show. Got to make sure to bring them stories and all that. Speaking of which,
so one quick hit before we get into this next story. Deval Patrick had an event. Well, Deval Patrick and Mayor Bloomberg has both gotten to the race, and we're giving this as much little credit as it deserves. Deval Patrick had an event. 0 people showed up to the event. Not 25. He didn't get the numbers that Warren got. He didn't get the numbers that Bernie got. 0.
So who is this Deval Patrick?
Deval Patrick. This is the establishment's pick for that they've thrown into the race because they want either Mayor Pete or Joe Biden to get the black vote, because you need the black vote to win the Democratic nomination, and they're not getting it. Yeah. Biden's getting it with older voters, but more millennials support Bernie and Warren. Yeah. More specifically, Bernie Sanders. Yeah. And that terrifies them. Same thing, and Mayor Pete has 0% with black voters. Yeah. So they put they try to get Deval Patrick to get to jump into the race, and we talked about the fact that this black man literally worked for Bain Capital, and he worked for AmeriCorps, which literally snatched the homes of black people away, black people out of their homes. And that black home ownership is the lowest it's been in 50 years.
By the way, for those of you, maybe some of the younger listeners, Bain Capital was the hot news story / meme that helped make sure Mitt Romney didn't get elected in 2012.
Okay, for those that don't know what Bain Capital, they are vulture capitalists. For those that know what Bain Capital is, these are the corporations that gut corporations so that the owners can make a profit and everyone else will get screwed. So companies like Sports Illustrated, Toys R Us, Radio Shack, Kmart, there's different equity firms, different other media corporations. AOC ripped into private equity recently she ripped into private equity recently when she had to talk to one of the people, talk to a private equity person it wasn't a panel, it was in a hearing recently, and it's on YouTube. Companies like Bain Capital have destroyed more jobs and lives than crack and heroin. They have destroyed hundreds of thousands of lives and jobs in communities where people were using those jobs to survive. Deval Patrick was a part of that. He's still part of that to this day. And you wonder why 0 people showed up to an event that he had. But that's him. Now, Mayor Bloomberg decided to jump into the race. Mayor Bloomberg recently as of a week ago, tried to apologize for stop and frisk. Now remember, now correct me if I'm wrong. Mayor Bloomberg was mayor. He was mayor or governor of New York back during the Bush administration era, right? He was a Republican. He was a Republican during the Bush administration era. He ran New York in the early to late 2000s.
You know, one of the most pertinent things I saw after Bloomberg announced, he was the mayor during the Occupy Wall Street protests, and somebody pointed out, like, I think the way they wrote it, it's like, yeah, I saw with my own eyes, under Bloomberg's administration, the kind of police brutality and just very authoritarian crushing of dissent happened, not only under his watch, but his instruction during Occupy Wall Street. And fact of the matter is, I think there couldn't be a more perfect metaphor for, like, an establishment pick in the basically a candidate, and I'm talking about Bernie Sanders here, who basically, it almost seemed like rose out of the fires of Occupy Wall Street like a phoenix, right. Like, carrying that message versus the guy who literally ordered that movement to be crushed.
Okay, so you have the things with Occupy Wall Street. You have stop and frisk, which was draconian. It was fascist. It was racist by design.
And you could blame like Giuliani for that, but he continued. Like Bloomberg continued that wholeheartedly.
Not only did he continue it, he apologized last week for it. You want to know when was the last time he was actually in defense of it? February of this year. Yeah. He was still defending stop and frisk January and February of this year when he was at a military graduation. And a military cadet asked him about stop and frisk policies and how it hurt the black community. And he was still defending it. Now, since he's jumped into the race. Though.
Slide to the left.
Right. Slide to the left. For real. No, so outside of that, he doesn't support the Green New Deal. Even though he says that he's been fighting for climate change, he owns Bloomberg's he owns Bloomberg, the reporting outlet. The same outlet that has done hit pieces on Bernie Sanders, the same outlet that has done hit pieces on Elizabeth Warren. So this billionaire, and this is the other part that makes it that outside of his actual policies that he's actually fought for, also he supported George W. Bush. He was a Republican until George W. Bush, folks. He agreed with the war in Iraq, and he agreed with the war in Afghanistan, and he believed in the talking point of Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction.
And, what's crazy about it, too, is, a lot of people talk about, especially centrists who don't like Bernie Sanders. It's like, he's not even a real Democrat, yada, 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 even though, basically, if you look at his career, he's an independent who's been caucusing with the Democrats for decades now, has more or less been a de facto part of the party. I mean, he's even, what is it? I can't remember, voter outreach.
He's a part. Yeah, he's the voter outreach head of the DNC. Yeah. Tom Perez put him in power in the DNC, and he's a independent.
Yeah, and Bloomberg has basically had no actual connections with the actual political party. Democratic Party has basically floated out running as an independent many times, just entering very late in the game because, one, being one of the two political parties is how you viably get elected to the United States presidency. And also, and this is again, you can do all the work you want for the Democratic Party, but when it comes down to it, I'm sure all of the heads of the DNC are going to back Bloomberg 100% if he looks like their best shot against Bernie Sanders, even though Bernie has, on paper and, ostensibly been working for the Democratic Party for a very long time now.
Okay.
There is no loyalty in that sense.
This goes back to, I'm glad you brought that up because this goes back to the other thing that I want to say. Okay. Outside that, he tried to ban big gulps.
That was
also another thing. He tried to ban big gulps. again, the point that I want to get to, his policies, he said, when he talks about Medicare for all, he said that Medicare for all is giving free health care and a pony. That's how he described Bernie Sanders' health care plan.
Which is outrageous. The only candidate in this election offering people a free pony is Vermin Supreme.
Okay, hold on. Here's the thing. 80% of the Democratic base supports Medicare for all.
Yeah.
70% of the country supports Medicare for all. You're literally taking a policy that the minority of the country, which are people like him, rich billionaires, do not support because they will have to pay more money. He doesn't support a wealth tax, obviously, because he's a billionaire. He doesn't support universal free college and tuition. But he believes that he can win. This is the thing that's the most scariest thing about Bloomberg. He's funding the campaign because he's a billionaire. He's funding it himself. He cannot get on the debate stage because of it. Because you need individual donors, small money donors. He's choosing not to do that. He's also on top of the fact, when it comes to policy, he said that legalizing marijuana is the dumbest thing that he's ever heard. He doesn't agree with raising the minimum wage. Again, when you were talking about Occupy Wall Street, that's a literal example of him fighting against a living wage, of raising the minimum wage. But this is the thing. He's choosing to fund it this way because, one, nobody's going to give him money. But two, he can make that as and this is my speculation, he's choosing to do it this way so that he can say the DNC wasn't fair to him. That's why I'm running as an independent. Especially if Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren gets the nomination.
I was gonna say,
that is the reason why Bloomberg and people like him, Tom Steyer and others, are literally some of the most dangerous people in our democracy because they will say Donald Trump is an existential threat to our country, but Bernie Sanders and Warren are an existential threat to their pocketbook.
Exactly. You really got to think about it. This guy did not decide to run for president until, and here's what we're looking at, folks. The two top-tier candidates of this primary, it looks like, are going to be Bernie Sanders and Warren. And, Joe's still kind of up there, but, like, he's flailing. Flailing a bit.
He still leads nationally. Yeah. So we can't be unbiased. Joe Biden still leads nationally. He's leading nationally because a lot of mainstream media will not fight back against talk about
will not criticize him or even point out a lot of his really alarming memory issues. Really not
dog,
even political.
Not even that. Recently, we're going to talk about it later in the story. His thing about his immigration sponsor or head, his immigration policy person resigned, and that was after Kosacha went and talked to him at a rally, and he told the person that was a member of Kosacha, you should go vote for Trump.
Yeah,
like,
was a complete butthole about it.
That again, that's a conversation that we also said that we were going to talk about. We were going to talk about on the show, but this is about Bloomberg, because we're going to talk about that too. Bloomberg, literally. And I'm telling people this now, because if Bernie or Warren, more specifically, if Bernie gets the nomination, which the DNC is trying its hardest to make sure not happen, because and we're going to talk about that in the next segment with President Obama and his influence. Bloomberg will say the DNC didn't give me a fair shot, so I will be running a third party candidacy. And he will literally put our country in danger so that he can continue to make money in the corrupt system that we have for today. Because it's better for him that Donald Trump, a white supremacist, racist, bigoted, sexual assaulting president, a corrupt president, is in power with the system that we have, than a social democrat become president of the United States. That is his thesis. That's my speculation. But looking at the tea leaves, there's no way in hell, with the policies that he support, he's going to win the Democratic nomination.
No.
None. Not in any way, shape, or form.
He doesn't even have, because, Joe, to his credit, is able to use his record, and he does have some positive things on that.
He has name recognition. He has name recognition, and the media loves him. That's it.
Yeah.
He has name recognition, and the media loves him. You cannot take that away from him.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
But yeah, Bloomberg was not associated with a very popular liberal president like Joe Biden is, Which, I am left to wonder if Obama's going to endorse him or Joe, which kind of leads into our next story.
Actually, President Obama might mess around and endorse Deval Patrick. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that. And he wanted to endorse Kamala. Mm-hmm. And there's a reason for that. He wanted to endorse Kamala because Kamala is a lot like him in being a corporatist Democrat. But he did not. But he's not endorsing Kamala because Kamala got kneecapped by Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi continued to kneecap her at the last debate. We didn't even talk about what happened at the last debate. Okay, so before we get to,
we'd like to report a murder.
Yeah. The last debate. What happened in the last debate basically is what we said. The debate questions were garbage. Andrew Yang didn't get a question until 32 minutes into the debate, which he called MSNBC out on. Bernie Sanders didn't get a question about housing. He didn't get a question about education. The only time they came to Bernie Sanders when they came to him when they talked about foreign policy, and to concern troll him because some of his supporters are saying we should lock up Trump because Trump has actually committed crimes.
No, yeah.
In comparison to Hillary saying Hillary locked him up, and they were concern trolling Bernie by saying, what about decor and manners? We care about decor and manners in the era of Trump.
Well, that just really catches me because, the only thing is not only that, but that's ahistorical because most Bernie supporters are very policy-oriented people. Say whatever else you want about them, they're about policy. And yeah, I'm sure they agree with that sentiment. But if you were to think of a constituency that's all about locking up Trump, that would be the pink hat people, the broader kind of liberal quote unquote hashtag resistance.
Here's the thing though, if you want to make an argument about locking up Trump, we can make a legit argument for it. Yeah, you can make legit arguments for Trump to be in jail. Trump University was fraud. Was literal fraud. He paid back. He was found guilty and paid money back to the people that he committed fraud to.
There's a hell of a lot more firewood for that blaze than even Nixon had when he was getting impeached.
Okay, Trump University, him getting paid, getting money from Saudi Arabia, and then giving them $1 billion, getting money through his hotels to and giving $1 billion deal to Saudi Arabia, and as they still commit to genocide in Yemen with the weapons that we give them. So that breaks the emoluments clause. How about the fact that he's been accused of rape about sexual assault by 24 different women. Outside of this Ukraine business, and yes, even in the testimonies that, yes, I will agree, are boring, does not ignore the fact that there was quid pro quo. They literally said it. His own people said, yeah, he was withholding money if Ukraine did not do what he said, which was look into his political opponents.
Yep.
For those who think that that's not a big deal, okay, cool. keep that same energy if you think that Bernie Sanders is okay to ask China about looking to the Trump family, Ivanka and them, on them making deals with Kushner and Ivanka's family. Keep that same energy. Keep that same energy if you keep talking about Hunter Biden needs to go and Hunter Biden should go and be subpoenaed to talk to Congress.
And like if something like that happened, that would be enough to create a new Red Scare.
No. Here's the thing. Okay, we can play that game. Which one of Trump's kids do you want to? Are we bringing? Are we bringing Ivanka, Kushner, Jared? Because they made over $90 billion
with a B.
They made. I don't think it's 90 billion. I think it was 90 million. I'm sorry.
Million.
They made 90 mil. You made 90 mil while being in the presidency, while being a part of the president's administration. If you're saying that they have not used the power of the presidency to influence themselves, which literally is breaking the law of our Constitution, you've lost your mind. You've literally lost your mind. So if we are going to make those arguments about Trump, especially left-leaning arguments, then we can. How about the fact that he's increased drone strikes? He's increased drone strikes over 400%. That's what our military said. And we were already killing 90% civilians before he got into office. If you don't think that hasn't gone up past 90%, then again, you've lost your mind.
Yeah.
Those
air wars is definitely shot up.
Yeah, here's the thing. That's a war crime. Those are war crimes. We can, if we wanted to indict President Trump, we can do that. The okay, so that was a whole long tangent. We were supposed to talk about the that sums up that conversation. Yeah. But and I'm sorry for those that came in and we just went on a long tangent about that. We were supposed to be talking about a recent story that just came out. Politico came out with a story yesterday about President Obama. President Obama has decided that he's been silent when it comes to Trump's policies. He didn't really speak out when it came to the Muslim ban. He hasn't really said anything about child separation at the border. He hasn't really said anything about Trump sexually assaulting and or raping women. He hasn't talked about the increase in drone strikes. I mean, he hasn't talked about Trump the Trump tax cuts and how that's hurt Americans, or him getting out of the Paris Climate Accord and him getting out of the Iran nuclear deal. These are definitely things that President Obama has not talked about, and he's chosen not to come out and speak out about. But people who are close to President Obama, and people who are close to people who are affiliated and associated with him, have come out and basically said that he will speak about the Democratic primary. He will give his thoughts about the 2020 candidates if Bernie Sanders becomes the nominee. Let me say that again. President Obama's team is basically saying if Bernie Sanders looks like he's going to run away with the nomination, that Bernie Sanders looks like he's going to run away with the nomination, that him and his team, they will all have to say something to stop it. That is what the Politico article is saying. So let me read some excerpts from this Politico article.
All right, please do.
Yeah. So some of the things that come straight from this article. I'm pulling it up right now. Please forgive me, folks. Obama is upset that saying that it will be that if someone like Warren or Sanders were to become will get to nomination, it will be a repudiation, a rebuke of his policies that he did after the financial crisis, as in the things that he did were inadequate. So
the hubris, I mean, goodness.
So he believes again, and we're gonna be fair. He believes that if we were to move forward, like with Medicare for all or universal free college or making a federal minimum wage, a living wage, and tying it to inflation, or moving forward with a Green New Deal, that it will make the things that President Obama did inadequate. He's right. He is right. There are some things that his legacy will still it should not be looked at as a bad thing. He's laid the foundation for the house of the house. Laying the foundation of the house is a good thing, so that the house can stand on proper ground. You're for saying how dare you move even farther. Yeah. Is a part of the problem.
Exactly. It's I mean, Joe Biden said something very similar recently. It's like, I will take on anybody who tries to dismantle the ACA from the right or the left. It's like it's an assault on my legacy. It's like, how selfish and out of touch do you have to be? It's like, you know, somebody comes out, I have this idea that is just going to improve everyone's lives in this country, and for you to like take it as a perfect, like an insult, like, you know, well, this is an insult to me because it's like the trolley problem. If you do one track, more people get killed, and the other track, then, you know, less people get killed. This is like the trolley problem, except like you already ran over a bunch of people, and there's a bunch of people on the track ahead. And it's like if you could go to the empty track and kill no one, but that would be really unfair to all of the people behind you that are already dead. So
no. The idea, but again, it shows how detached from the average American you are. 35 to 47,000 Americans die every year because they do not have health care. These are stats that y'all have heard me rail off before. That is your legacy. Was it better than what we had before? Yes, I will make that argument all day. I will make the argument all day that President Obama is still the best president that we've had in our lifetimes. I will make that argument all day, and that there are positive things that he did in his legacy. That's a part of his legacy. But
I would agree with you on that, and just so everybody knows, like, I'm the radical Marxist one, but in my lifetime, the presidents we've had are George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton,
Bush first,
George Jr., and then Obama and then Trump. So definitely he's the best one.
Yes. I mean, I'll put Reagan and Carter. Let's be fair. Let's put Reagan and Carter also in that mix. I will put Carter in there as well as one of the best presidents that we've had. Here's the problem. The thing that he said in this is the thing that he said. This is what he said in the piece in the Political. Ryan Lizzo wrote this piece in Politico. When it comes to Sanders, I asked one of the close advisors whether Obama would really lay himself on the line to prevent Sanders' nomination. The person said, "I can't really confirm that," the advisor said. "He hasn't said that directly to me." Here's the next part. The only reason I hesitate at all is because, if Bernie were running away with it, I think maybe we would all have to say something. But I don't think that's likely. It's not happening. That's that DC bubble when we have recently talked about Bernie's leading in New Hampshire. He's leading in Nevada. He's in the top 2 when it comes to Iowa. Recent polling, Pete Buttigieg was leading in Iowa, but he's still within the top 3. And his polling has gotten better in there. He's still in the top 3 when it comes to South Carolina. Obviously, these people don't know how to read a poll.
No.
Because Bernie's support has continued to surge. And the biggest weapon that President Obama has in his arsenal right now is his endorsement. That's what he has. If you don't think that he will not give his endorsement to an establishment candidate, you don't know politics.
Yeah, you really don't. And you got to keep in mind, President Obama, to his credit, and it is kind of something that popped in my head, but I think it relates to he started when he was running in 2008. He got ridiculed a lot for being a community organizer, which basically is what I am. It's some of the work that Lawrence does. It's the people we have day in and day out.
Shout out to Project X. Shout out to Truth. What is it? Truth, Racial Healing, and Racial Healing, and I keep forgetting.
I'm having a brain.
I keep forgetting the other acronym as part of that. Truth, Racial Healing, and I can't think of the other one.
But yeah, so I guess what I was trying to say today is just this is what happens to a lot of folks, especially Obama rising under this sort of neoliberal paradigm that we have. He came in with the best of intentions, and now he's holding water for billionaires. He used to be challenging these people when they came into his neighborhood to gentrify or do something, this, that, or the other. Now he's basically a hired gun for these folks. I will give out this endorsement to stop somebody who used to represent the values I had. Man,
he ran.
Capitalism is a hell of a drug.
Dog. Think about when we think about President Obama's legacy. Who ran to the left of Obama? Honestly, think about it. Who ran to the left of Obama?
Are we thinking of Howard Dean? Or?
Howard Dean was the only Howard Dean was what 2000. He was 2004 or 2008.
I'm pretty sure it was 08.
Yeah. Okay. So Howard Dean was the only person who ran to the left. Who was to the left of President Obama, and then he imploded. Mostly because that and also he didn't have name recognition. He didn't have any of the name recognition or the pizzazz as or good order outside of that craziness. But who was he? But he was further left than Clinton. Especially when it came to foreign policy, he was further left than Clinton. Even though she was for Medicare for all, he wasn't. Let's be clear. But he was further left than Clinton on multiple issues. He was definitely further left than Senator McCain. He was further left than Mitt Romney. So he was the further left candidate who actually had a chance of winning. So, and this also goes back to the article, and I wanted to make sure I get this part from the article because I didn't read this part first.
Just wanted a quick correction. So Howard Dean actually ran for president in 2004.
That's what I thought.
And
that's what I thought.
But he was still kind of politically progressive in 08.
Yeah. So that's what I thought. Yeah. So this is a part of the article. Back when this is another thing. Back when Sanders seemed more likely to be a threat than he does now, Obama said privately that if Bernie were to run away with the nomination, Bernie would speak up to stop him.
Obama would speak up.
Obama would speak up to stop him. So think about this. President Obama still has positive support in the country. He's still one of the most popular politicians in the country. Same thing, same idea with Hillary Clinton. We talked about this when Hillary Clinton got back into the news. What did they use that political capital to do? We've had teacher strikes.
Yeah.
We have Chicago teacher strikes. We've had poll workers in West Virginia who literally stood on the tracks as their companies refused to pay their pensions and refused to give them their money. We've had GM workers back in Flint and in Michigan literally get their health care snatched away from them because they were protesting.
Particularly young people leading climate walkouts all over the world, really.
Yeah. So we've had massive mass shootings since the end of his presidency. What has he used his political capital to do? He's come back to give speeches on Wall Street. He's come back to get a Netflix deal and a book deal with his wife. He's had his summit where he went and talked down to millennials, which we talked about before, about how too much change is maybe a bad thing when he was the hope and change candidate. And now he's literally saying one of the people who is a front runner who's most likely to beat Trump, and in an overwhelming majority of polls since 2015-16 beats Trump in a head-to-head matchup, he will speak out against if they become the nominee. And it's not just Bernie that he says this about. He also says this about Warren, because he's still bitter about Warren. He says this about Warren. Let me get to the point where he says about Warren. Back in 2015, when Warren was pushing the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, so here's it. This is what he says. This is also in the piece. Obama's relationship with Warren is famously complicated. Back in 2015, Obama said privately that if Democrats rallied around her as their nominee, it would be a repudiation of him. A clear sign that his economic decisions after the Great Recession has been seen as inadequate.
Well, it has. I'm sorry, Barry.
It has, but also it goes back to that ego of his legacy. This is before she was a senator. Back in 2015, she performed a miracle by getting the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau up and running, despite the fact that President Obama and the administration did not want it. And on top of that, they didn't even put her as the head of it, even though it was her creation. So look at that. When it comes to the two progressives in the race, President Obama is saying, if they become the nominee, I'm going to have to speak out against it. If it's Bernie, more specifically, if it's Bernie, he will come out and speak against him. And right. I would love for President Obama to say something publicly. Because the idea, here's the thing, the idea is if you talk bad against President Obama as a Democrat, then it's going to hurt your poll numbers, or it's going to hurt you. Forgetting the fact that a lot of Democrats feel that a lot of the country feels that President Obama, yes, he was a good steward, but he helped out Wall Street and not Main Street. Yeah. So if Bernie was to say, okay, President Obama, please argue against, I want to hear you argue against Medicare for all, when earlier this year you said that it was a good idea.
He did, yeah. Let's not forget about that. Yeah. Like earlier this year, he endorsed Medicare for all.
Yeah.
Now he's doing
and I would say President Obama, you said you during your tenure you were letting out non violent drug offenders. I want to legalize marijuana. 60% of the country wants to legalize marijuana. Please argue against this policy when the overwhelming base of your party supports it. I would love to have someone actually ask these questions, but here's the problem. If the only time you're gonna have these conversations happen with President Obama is when he's talking trash about the two progressives in the race, and no one's gonna talk back, no one's gonna fight back, then he's using his power not to help push progressive change, but to keep the status quo. And the reason why, because let's be honest, Trump makes President Obama's legacy look better.
It does. Yeah.
Trump makes his legacy look better. And since that's what he cares about more than anything else, that's what he's going to fight tooth and nail to protect.
All right, so I think with that, let's take a quick little break, and then when we come back, we're going to do some quick hits before we wrap up. Yeah. Y'all listening to the Hoodrat Strategist radio program only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo, your only source for political revolution.
Listen now to learn about some upcoming shows in the Kalamazoo area. November 16,
Calyx, Lost Nubase, Fluster, and Wajtek at the Greenhouse.
November 17th,
Jupiter Styles, Hold the Person, Coastal Car, and Common Law at Hatchet House.
November 29,
Motherfolk, Modern Adventures, Basic Comfort, and The Rays over at Shakespeare's.
Check out ditkalamazoo.squarespace.com/shows for more information.
Take you out, 'cause they're gonna put me in.
Hello, everyone. We are back. This is the Hoodrat Strategist radio program only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo. So we try to fit in a few more topics. I'm just going to dive right into them because we only got so much time, but at least like do some quick hit style. So this is a story that came to my attention earlier today. It ties in a lot to discussions we've had on the programs related to Sesta Fosta or Fosta Sesta. Basically issues revolving around sex workers' rights. This is from the BBC. Why is Instagram deleting the accounts of hundreds of porn stars? So I'm going to kind of go down. And so this is... They're interviewing Elena Evans. She's president of the Adult Performers Actors Guild and one of the leading voices in the battle that adult stars are waging to stay on the platform. Miss Evans' group has collected a list of more than 1,300 performers who claim that their accounts have been deleted by Instagram's content moderators for violations of the site's community standards, despite not showing any nudity or sex. They discriminate against us because they don't like what we are doing for a living, Miss Evans says. And then there's a picture of a user down here. I don't know exactly who's supposed to be a Hogwarts preacher, probably maybe like a cam model or something. It's a very innocent looking picture of this person just in a pumpkin patch, fully clothed, and they took it down. Literally because of the profession that this person has. So, here's some more that kind of goes into it. So, Miss Evans was particularly upset when the account of porn star Jessica James was removed after her death in September. The account, which is followed by more than 900,000 people, was later reinstated. In late 2018, adult performers say an individual or a number of individuals started a coordinated campaign to report accounts to social media platforms with the clear intent of having them removed. This is often followed by harassment and intimidation in the form of abusive messages. Adult performer and sex workers' rights activist Ginger Banks was among one of the first targets of the campaign. When you put time and effort into building an account with over 300,000 followers and it gets deleted, that makes you feel defeated. Even if you're following the rules, you still have your account deleted, and that's the part that's frustrating. She says that removing adult performers and sex workers from social media is another way of marginalizing these groups by removing them from their primary, or in some cases, only marketing channel. The people reporting us don't understand that people's incomes are affected, or they don't care. They think we should be doing this job, they think we shouldn't be doing this job, or that it shouldn't exist. There's a lot more that goes into this article, and I recommend everybody check it out. It's BBC, why is Instagram deleting the accounts of hundreds of porn stars?
I mean, dog, come on now. How y'all how are y'all gonna delete people who is doing the Lord's work? Let me explain why they are doing the Lord's work. Do you honestly believe that people who are like incels and other people like that, if you honestly believe that those people would not do more violence if it wasn't for people who are in the sex work industry? Or if you believe that people who would be more depressed, they were more likely to be these pent up, frustrated, angry people would not be able to have an outlet to talk to somebody or to feel like they can connect with someone. That's this type of social work that sex workers are literally doing. On top of the fact, you also have people who may have lost a loved one. They may have lost a loved one and they do not feel that they are emotionally ready to be in another committed relationship like that. So they turn to people who are in that trade to meet their needs. You also have people who are disabled. You also have people who have disabilities or people who are socially awkward. They may not be able to connect, so they turn to these type of workers, to fit that need. They are doing the Lord's work in many aspects.
The key word for me is work, because like, it reminds me of a lot. Like we use this for like, this is something we say a lot for people in like the food service industry or something. It's like you cannot.
They are also doing the Lord's work.
Yeah. You cannot demand a service and then denigrate the people who are providing that service to you. And it's a particular problem for like people in the sex work industry, because there's this puritanical streak in Western culture that it's like the very same people that are probably going home looking up these performers on the various channels, like, you know, RedTube and not that I ever go to these places.
Oh, come on, Doc.
No.
Doc, okay. So, but this is also the things that we also have to get to. Because of the invention of the cell phone, and because
look at Ted Cruz, for instance.
I mean, Doc, look at what was it, Alex Jones? But that's a whole nother conversation. There was a study that came out that basically said that a majority of teenagers, basically teenagers who have access to a cell phone, tablet, or a computer, has seen porn. Like, these were middle schoolers they were talking about. So 10, 11, 12-year-olds. You know what I'm saying? 10, 11, 12, 13-year-olds. Because of their phones and things they have access to, they have seen porn in one way, shape, or form. If you don't think if you don't think your young one will or in any way get to that in any way, shape, or form, you are clearly mistaken.
And you know, I want to like drill down a bit too, and it's like this does affect people. You know, this is talking about like big name porn stars and stuff, but this same standard works against people like they're close to you. I'm not look, we're in a college town. And I also, like, I live in the Vine neighborhood. A lot of people make some extra scratch by, like, selling lewds or selling cam time or doing escort work, etc. Things that make it harder for, you know, these organizers, these sex workers, these porn stars to operate under our economic system also make it just as hard for those folks as well. And again, think of, like, what Instagram did. They took, like, innocuous pictures, photos, profiles, not even necessarily related to selling that work, and banhammered them literally only because they were known to be sex workers. It's gross BS is what that is. Discriminatory.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. And this is my last point on this. My last point on this is that if you are watching these people and you are enjoying their work in the comfort of your own home, then give that. And we say that we live in the country of the land of the free, home of the brave, and people say that we care about liberty and freedom. Then give those people the liberty and freedom to make a living doing what they do. Let you enjoy it in your cellar just like how everybody else enjoys it in theirs, in their homes and wherever it is, and let it be. Let it be. Let go and let God. Okay, let go and let God. Let them continue to do the Lord's work. That's what that is. That work, in my opinion. Again, this is my liberal side. It should be legalized, regulated. It should be legalized, regulated, and taxed just like any other commodity. Because that work is just like teachers, just like firefighters, just like police officers. They are providing a service to our country.
And if you look at the evidence, decriminalization has proven to have better outcomes for sex workers and the communities they live in.
Right. So again, and also multiple activists, like even like trans activists. What was it? Ashley Marie Preston, she's a surrogate for Warren. She talks about how she's a trans black activist. She talks about how she turned to that form of work because she was being discriminated at regular jobs. And
often the most marginalized are the people who do go into sex.
No, but that's the thing though. She was telling her story. She was like, it was the GOP that helped her pay her bills, that helped her keep her food on the table, that helped her keep gas in her car. And these are the same people who are the family values people who say that on the Hill will criminalize them, but in private will pay for their services. So let's not get tripping. Like let's not be silly. They are doing the Lord's work, and they need to continue to do the Lord's work.
All right, so we only got 2 minutes left, so I'm going to do these real quick. One of these stories I think we need to go into more depth into next week because it was just wild and crazy, happened right here in this state.
All right.
Locally here at Kalamazoo, fired Kalamazoo County jail employee sentenced to probation for embezzling inmate funds. And I'll read just a real quick excerpt from the article. This is in the Gazette. It was published on the 25th. Marcy Copeland, 47, was sentenced to 1 year probation by Judge Gary Gagor. Copeland previously pleaded guilty to the felony charge of embezzlement of more than 20 grand, but less than 50 grand. What she did, Copeland, who was responsible for monitoring the bond kiosks, used stolen funds to pay her bills. Her attorney argued that because she did not use the money for lavish items, she found forgiveness from coworkers and family members. But anyways, he said as a government employee, she was held to a higher standard. But yeah, the argument they're trying to make is like, because she was stealing from prison inmates to pay her bills, that's somehow more morally righteous than, I don't know, buying a car or something. Still wrong. Still don't know if that punishment fits the crime because, again, you were robbing people. Apparently it's okay just because they're in prison, which it isn't. I'm being sarcastic, but that's the logic there. We're going to get to this more in depth next week. ICE arrested... Oh, I'm sorry.
That's the story that we need to talk about. ICE, that story about ICE and their fake university. They're committing fraud.
Yeah.
They're committing fraud. And that in Michigan, we need to talk about that. Benjamin Netanyahu is indicted for corruption. That there is justice in the world. Also, I want to also talk about during the debate. We didn't get a chance to analyze the debate, so we need to. I want to do so a little bit.
But like
that was the first time I've ever heard someone talk about Palestinian rights on a debate stage.
Yeah,
in a presidential debate.
Yep.
Bernie. It's funny how the Jewish candidate for president is talking about how Palestinians need to be treated like human beings.
Hey, what a thought! What an idea!
Like that is such a low bar. He cleared it without much problem, and he's the only one that I know of that in recent history that's ever said anything like that.
Yeah. So we're at 8:00. Okay. I want to let y'all know. So one last thing. The Wisconsin governor signed a bill criminalizing pipeline protesters. We'll talk a little bit more about that next week.
All right, absolutely.
Sorry we didn't have time to talk. We were going to talk a little bit more about, some indigenous issues. National Day of Mourning, which is what a lot of Indigenous folks are going to be doing tomorrow in lieu of Thanksgiving. See, this is just a quick minute 40 clip that goes into it a little bit. We'll play that out. Thank y'all for listening to the Hoodrat Strategist radio program. Until next week, keep fighting for that revolution solution.
Growing up, I knew that what they told you in school about Thanksgiving wasn't true. That's not the true story. The true story behind Thanksgiving was after every killing of a whole village, these European settlers celebrated it, and they called it Thanksgiving. But it wasn't until Abraham Lincoln became president that it became an official holiday.
He ordered 38 Dakota men to be hung for war crimes after the sacred holiday Christmas.
We take this time to remember our elders who lost their lives due to what really happened. Usually my mom makes a Native American dish for us and we pray.
Growing up, I would be kind of annoyed that they didn't know what actually happened on Thanksgiving and that they're actually celebrating the deaths of many people and many tribes that were lost.
Whether it's to give thanks or to be with your family, you should learn how the holiday was established in the first place.
I'm thankful for being born indigenous to this continent.
I'm thankful that I still have my culture.
I'm thankful that my elders kept our culture alive all these years.
I'm thankful to be indigenous, resilient, and alive.
I'm thankful for us all to be able to stand together, stand strong, and stand as one.
Happy Thanksgiving, America.